for Anthony. Anthony,
Yes, sir.
what year did you all did we do the screening for? The 10th anniversary?
Yes, sir. Can you hear me?
Yeah. What year was it? I mean, what anniversary was it?
Yeah. Hold on one second. Brandon?
Yes, sir.
Right. So right now we're live on YouTube. So make sure you're aware.
Okay. No, I didn't know that.
Yeah, we're live on YouTube as well. So we completed the interviews and everything. I think it's 2013.
Yes, sir.
First decided to screen it.
Okay, 2013. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
And if you want, you can turn off your video for now until we get started.
Yes, sir. You got
Greetings, everyone. Thank you for joining us for our special screening and discussion on the Million Man March, the Untold Story documentary. At this time, we'd like to open up our meeting in prayer. So please assume the position that's most comfortable for you as we pray. In the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Merciful, all praise is due to Allah, the Beneficent, the Merciful, Master of the Day of Judgment. Thee alone do we serve, and Thee alone do we beseech for aid. O Allah, guide us on the right path, the path of those upon whom Thou hast bestowed favors, not the path of those upon whom Thy wrath is brought down, nor of those who go astray. Ameen. And once again, thank you everyone for joining us. We're going to go right into it. What I'd like to do at this time is to turn the meeting over to the coordinator for the Washington, D.C. Ministry of Arts and Culture to take us further into the program, our brother, Anthony Seven Muhammad. You're on mute, Brother Anthony.
Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam.
The merciful. I bear witness there is no God but Allah, Muhammad and his messenger. I would like to first thank the most honorable Elijah Muhammad, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, the Mid-Atlantic region, and the laboring staff for this opportunity to work with the most honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan on the labor of love of the resurrection of our community. Again, thank you for joining us today for the anniversary, the 25th anniversary of the Million Man March, Holy Day of Atonement. Today, we're doing a presentation that was produced by one of our own, our sister, who is an MGT in Mosque number 4. She's the president and CEO of Vanguard Television, Sister Angela R. Muhammad. So we're honored to work with her in the way of collaboration, getting this project done. I would like to say a few words about the Ministry of Art and Culture, give you some historical points that you can do some research on your own time. All these references are published out of the Final Call News. This first reference is titled The Atomic Commission Meeting Roll Across the Nation. And that was published on 7/9/2002. I'm giving you these references for those who are not familiar with the history and the development of the ministries. You will be able to, in your own time, go and do the research so you can come up to date to where we are today. The second reference is called Making His Word Bond. It was a national laborers conference. It was held at the ministers' conference at the ministers' farm in Michigan. And I did happen to be a part of the committee that from Mosque number 4 that was in attendance. And out of that, the last reference I would like to give you is called The 9 Ministries to Build a Nation. That was published March 7th, 2006. I leave you with those references because in your own time, you will really be able to see the detailed history that has brought us to this point to where we are today. Following the work of the ministry with the Stop the Killing tour, then from the Stop the Killing tour, it was Let Us Make Man tour. And out of the Let Us Make Man tour became the Million Man March. And out of that came the Million Women's March, the Million Family March, and the Millions More movement. And that is when he actually announced the ministry. All along through the references I give you, you will be able to reflect back on the development stages of the ministries being developed. I would like to share with you the title of these ministries. There are 9 of them. There are actually 10, spiritual being the 10th ministry, but They're listed as Ministry of Arts and Agriculture, Ministry of Education, Ministry of Trade and Commerce, Ministry of Defense, Ministry of Health and Human Services, Ministry of Information, Ministry of Art and Culture, Ministry of Justice, and the last one is Ministry of Science and Technology. Again, we are part of the committee of Ministry of Arts and Culture, and during the process of the development of the 9 ministry, we were giving a process of called deliberative dialogue, which we use, and we have a framework to host our meetings. And out of the deliberative dialogue, we come up with a consensus on direction on our projects. And so that's how we came up with this particular project. At this particular time, I would like to turn the next part of the meeting over to the president and CEO, Sister Angela, and she'll be able to carry you a little further into the program. Sister Angela?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Brother Anthony.
Yes, ma'am.
And peace and blessings. Assalamu alaikum and peace and blessings. Again, I'm Sister Angela Muhammad, CEO of Vanguard Television. I'm the director and producer of this awesome documentary, The Million Man March, The Untold Story. And I first have to say, in talking about how we came up with the idea of doing the documentary, I have to bring Sister Letitia Muhammad on, who's the wife of Brother Anthony. She came to me with the idea of doing the documentary. So I'm going to have her talk about what inspired her to come up with the idea, and then I can take it further on how we got to this point. Sister Letitia Muhammad.
Assalamu alaikum. I think we were riding back from Savior's Day, I believe. And the idea came to my mind that if it's 10 years, and that's your expertise, Sister Angela, you know, your area.
It was the 15th year anniversary.
Yeah, I knew it was something like significant. And so I was saying, well, it just came to my mind, we should do something significant about it, you know, do the history of it, or the making of the march. I forget the march. I can't remember exactly the words that came to my mind. And so I just told Sister Angela my idea, and then it just went from there. It just came to my head. Things come to different people, for other people or for ourselves. So that one, in my opinion, was for Sister Angela. And I heard a baton, so to speak.
Yes, ma'am. So like she said, she came to me with the idea of doing, at that time, a documentary commemorating the 15th year anniversary. So I thought it was an excellent idea, you know, being a filmmaker from Howard University, shout out to HU. I think it's every filmmaker's dream to do a film that they're passionate about, right? And so when she came to me with the idea of doing that, I thought it was a wonderful idea. I had never heard of a documentary being done about the Million Man March, and especially from the Nation of Islam's point of view. So I jumped on it immediately, you know, of course, with the help of Sister Letitia and others, my husband, Brother Anthony. I see we have Maria Jones on the call, who's a good friend of ours. Her husband, Mr. Joseph, I've known him for a long time. Anthony Venuto, you know, other members, Sister Kamara, who also helped. So it was definitely a joint effort. So we started doing interviews, and we had the opportunity to interview Dr. Aleem Muhammad, who was the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, one of his doctors at that time. And so when we interviewed him, okay, mind you, we're still calling it the Million Man March, the 15th year, commemorating the 15th year anniversary or something like that. That's what we were calling it. So when we interviewed him, he said, you know, you can't stop at 15 years. He said, you have, and this is 2010. He said, you have to talk about all the other untold stories out there. So I was like, okay. I said, so we'll just call it the Million Man March, the Untold Story, you know, until we come up with something better. So that was like a working title, but it stuck, and that happens sometimes. Sometimes you call it one thing, not thinking that it would be that thing that you would call. You think it would be called something different. Mm-hmm. And we came up with the idea of calling it the Million Man March, the Untold Story, and how we got into this point. I mean, Allah has blessed us to interview a lot of people that I had never thought that I would be able to interview. As you will see in the documentary, we had the opportunity to meet and interview Chuck D of Public Enemy, Ice-T, Dr. Dorothy Height. We had a chance to interview her, and these people that you hear about in the news and in history and stuff. So to be in their presence was definitely an honor. And of course, it was definitely an honor to meet the minister. So that's how we got to this point, from the time that Sister Letitia came to me with the idea. And here we are now celebrating the 25th year anniversary of the Million Man March. And this project has definitely been a labor of love for all of us. Nobody got paid. And so, to be able to work with an awesome group of people who believe in the vision that you see is definitely a blessing. I definitely want to thank, everyone who helped with the project and who have supported us to this point. So at this time, we're going to show some behind the scenes footage of the day that we interviewed the minister. We're going to show some photos and some footage.
Okay, everyone, at this time, just to introduce myself real quick. I'm Brother Anthony K. Muhammad, the husband of Angela. And we have a little presentation here with some photos that were taken before we interviewed the minister. So these are behind the scenes type of pictures that we wanted to share. And so please, as we go through, we're going to discuss them, and anybody can join in and ask questions, or if you were there and want to add something, please do. All right, this first slide, this is actually, the interview took place at the Sheraton Hotel in Arlington, Virginia. And as you can see from this first slide, this is Sister Angela, the director, and Brother Anthony Sevin, our coordinator for the 9 ministries in DC. And we're waiting outside of the room where we were setting up for the interview. And then I'm gonna, if no one chimes in, I'll just keep on scrolling through, but so we can go ahead and get to the screen. This picture here is Brother Anthony Sevin and his family. They're a family of artists. They have several companies that promote the different forms of art. You already met Sister Letitia Muhammad, Brother Anthony Sevin's wife, and then their daughter is Sister Nazira Muhammad, who at the end of our presentation, we were able to present a gift from her to the Honorable Miss Louis Farrakhan. So we want to make sure that she got a little FaceTime here with our program. And next, this is our interviewer, Sister Aisha Muhammad, with the director. And this is at the actual interview space. And she did an excellent job. Like my wife said, Sister Angela said, no one got paid to do this. Everyone volunteered. Everyone did it out of the kindness of their heart. And it turned out to be a great project because, it was done in the right spirit.
And here, this is my Howard University crew. So we have in the black shirt, Anthony Venuto, a long time, very good friend of mine. He's an excellent videographer, and Mr. Joseph, I learned a lot from him at Howard University. So this is my Howard University crew. Anthony, I mean, he is so awesome. I don't have enough words to describe how good he is. I had told him.
Yeah, that Anthony Venuto, he's awesome too. I'm just joking. But his name's Anthony too, so.
Okay.
Go ahead.
But I had told him before that whenever I did a big project, I was going to bring him on. So he jumped right in, and I mean, I don't have enough words to describe it, but I was just wanting to, at this time, thank both of them for helping.
All right, and this is inside the space. The person on the camera is Anthony Venuto. Sister Aisha is sitting in the interviewer chair, and across from her is a brother who's on the Final Call staff. And we're all working to set up and get everything laid out. He's sitting in the chair that the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan is actually will be sitting in during his interview.
And for those who don't know, it's a lot of work involved in doing any film project. So this kind of gives you a little idea of how even movies are done. You have people working on the lights, you have people doing the camera, a person sits in for the main person, your primary person, and they kind of use that person to see how the lights will be set up, where they're going to put the sound, just everything.
And I just want to make a little side note here. When we were setting up, when we first came in, I think the Final Call didn't know what our setup was going to be, or if we had any type of production equipment with us. So they had a table, that round table that you see in the back, one of those round tables. They actually had put one of those tables in the middle of the floor and put a mic on top of it, thinking that we didn't have anything, that we'd just be sitting at the table. But we're blessed with the Howard crew that my wife mentioned. They have some state-of-the-art equipment. The person that's crouching on in front of Sister Aisha is Mr. Joseph. And again, Anthony Venuto is on the camera, but they hooked up all the lights, they hooked up the sound, they blacked out the back of the shot. And the brother who was sitting in the chair across Sister Aisha, he at first thought he would have to run everything, but then he began to understand right away that, our crew knew what they were doing. So he backed them up in setting everything up. So, we really were blessed to have a really good interview. All right, and this is the final shot before in this segment. This picture is, and you'll see as we show some of the footage, this is a shot before we got the interview started. Brother Joshua, the minister's son, asked for the minister's glasses so he could clean them. And so this is a nice shot that Brother Enoch, who's our still photographer for the documentary, got of the minister. And so that's his watermark there, El Shemesh Photography. So in your, afterwards, if you want to look him up, you can. But this was an excellent shot that we wanted to share before we got into the actual footage.
Brother Anthony,
Yes,
I
sir.
would like to share a few words on that first shot where we were standing outside the door, getting ready to go into the do the interview.
Yes,
Man, you're talking about butterflies and not knowing, what to expect, working with the minister a number of years, but not formally meeting him. And, the minister can read right through you. Everything about you want to make sure your thoughts are on tune, in tune. But that was just a remembrance of myself knowing right before we were going in. I knew we would do well, but as far as the setup and everything, like you said, on the other side of that door, we hadn't been in the room. We didn't really know what it's going to be like. But that is something I really remember, just, having little butterflies right before any major, because this is major and this is historical. If you really put it in proper perspective, what Sister Angela has really done has archived history. And from this day forward, this will be a teaching tool through many generations. So.
And I'd just like to add too, when we got the minister's interview, it was 3 years prior to that before we were able to sit down with him. So we had got word from his office that he would do the interview, but then it was another 3 years before we sat down with him because he was going in and out of the country at that time. And I laugh because I used to hear about people when they work on projects and they say, okay, it took me 5 years to do it, 7 years. And I'd be like, why it take so long to do a project? but I see why it takes so long now.
Okay, so at this time, we're going to actually show some of the footage of the minister before his interview got started. And then after we show that, we'll show the actual documentary itself. So please enjoy this next segment.
Right?
Yes, sir.
84, 94,
Yes, sir. Yes.
2004, 2014. That's 30 years.
Yes, sir.
We don't want no dialogue. Hell no. Well, sis.
Hold on. Let me see the glasses real quick.
Richard?
Yes, sir.
What's the headline after this one today?
Brother Minister. I wrote it down. It's not "Let's get ready to rumble," but it's kind of something. That's not exactly it, but it's kind of something.
No. Let's get ready to rumble. No, don't do it like that.
No? Okay.
Because rumble carries too many significant, too many things you leave people to interpret. You calling for a fight.
Yes, sir.
We're calling for a showdown with liars and thieves
Yes, sir.
that have been calling me an anti-Semite and the nation a hate group.
Yes, sir.
Bring it.
Yes, sir.
That's what this is about.
Yes, sir.
No backroom talk.
That's right. I hope that's better, sir.
Got to be before the whole world. Sisters, are you ready to fight?
Yes, sir.
What?
Yes, sir.
Woo. I'm in the right place.
Let's just get started.
Okay, here we go.
Quiet on the set.
Your speed? Anytime, sis.
All right, so that gives you an idea of the spirit of the minister. And just to give a little background on that segment, the minister was in town to interview with Rock Newman at WEAC Radio in Anacostia. And during his interview with Rock Newman, he was fired up because right before he came on with Rock Newman was interviewing Mark Potok from this Southern Poverty Law Center, SPLC. And if you all are familiar with SPLC, they have categorized the Nation of Islam as a hate group, and they categorize Mr. Farrakhan as anti-Semitic. And that's exactly what he was referring to in the beginning of that segment. He said, it's a showdown because in the final call, he was asking Brother Richard, who's the editor of the final call, what's the headline that we're going to have on the final call? And Brother Richard said, I think, let's get ready to rumble or something like that. And that's why the minister was like, no, you're calling for a fight. We're calling for a showdown between liars that have called him anti-Semite, called us a hate group. So I just wanted to put that in context to show that he was in a war spirit, even though he was, also pleasant, but his spirit was a war spirit as he came in. And that's why he also asked the two sisters, Sister Aisha and Sister Angela, are you ready to fight? Sisters, are you ready to fight? So that's a powerful moment. I don't know if anyone else want to speak on that. But if not, we're going to go ahead and show the actual documentary, and then we'll pick back up our discussion. And if anyone has any questions after that, we can ask some questions. So just let everybody know I'm muting everyone, and no one will be allowed to mute themselves during the actual screening, so we won't be interrupted. All right. So thank you and enjoy. All right, I need one moment here to cue up the film. So if anyone else wants to chime in, Sister Angie, you want to mention how things were going in the beginning before we got going?
So,
I'm ready.
oh, okay.
I'm playing. I'm ready, guys. Just messing with my wife here. Here we go.
Leader march.
Okay, let's get this together here. Here we go.
So the Honorable Elijah Muhammad said, one day I'm going to lead a march, brother. And he said, we won't leave Washington until we get what we go for, and that is justice.
Whether or not they have 1 million people here, of course, remains to be seen.
The Million Man March, October 16th, 1995. 2 million black men standing together, shoulder to shoulder, for 14 hours in ranks. They came from all walks of life, from all over the country. At the call of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, it was a day of atonement, a holy day, called on a Monday, a work day. It was a day of absence. Those who could not attend were asked to stay home as a show of solidarity with the Million Man March. Black men were encouraged to atone with God and with each other, to reconcile their differences with family and others, and to take responsibility for themselves and their communities so that they would no longer depend on others to do what they could do for themselves. The Million Man March was arguably the biggest and most peaceful event to have ever occurred in America. How was this miracle, as described by many, possible? What caused this glimpse of heaven to manifest itself to America and to the world? Why would God use the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan as the vessel for this awe-inspiring event? We know that the spirit of atonement, reconciliation, and responsibility was the order of the day. But was there a deeper meaning behind why the Million Man March was called? Many stories have been told by many people about the Million Man March. Is there an untold story? If so, what is it?
Well, the root of everything that Allah has blessed us to do since the departure of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad goes directly back to him. Such a wise and great teacher had the ability to plant seeds in the mind of those of us who were his students. And I, in particular, he planted seeds that he knew I didn't understand at the time. But at some time in the future, those seeds would germinate into actions that would lead to consequences, both good and bad.
The Honorable Elijah Muhammad produced many great students, including Minister Farrakhan, Malcolm X, and Muhammad Ali. During the Civil Rights era, the Nation of Islam, led by the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, was the counterpoint to the integrationist movement, epitomized by the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Dr. King was introduced to the world when he participated in the August 28, 1963 March on Washington, where he delivered his I Have a Dream speech on the steps of the Lincoln Memorial. The Nation of Islam did not participate in the 1963 March on Washington, but that march did serve as part of a seed for the Honorable Elijah Muhammad to plant into the mind of one of his greatest students, Minister Louis Farrakhan.
we were talking about the March on Washington that Dr. King was a part of. And the Honorable Elijah Muhammad was being critical, not of our reason for marching, but the spirit of like with a party, or we're having fun, or instead of the serious demeanor that should accompany such a noble thing as a march for jobs and justice. So the Honorable Elijah Muhammad said, one day I'm going to lead a march, brother. And he said, we won't leave Washington until we get what we go for, and that is justice. And it went in. And
even though the seed of the Million Man March was now planted in the mind of Minister Farrakhan, it would take many more years before that seed would germinate. Jobs and justice were the goals of the 1963 March on Washington. Worthy goals indeed. However, the methodology used by Dr. King and others was altogether different than what was being espoused by the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, Malcolm X, and Minister Farrakhan. While it appeared that certain gains were being made via the civil rights movement, there were also a number of covert and overt attacks on the Black community taking place. After President John F. Kennedy was assassinated in November 1963, on July 2, 1964, President Lyndon Baines Johnson signed the Civil Rights Act into law. After Malcolm X was assassinated on February 21, 1965, Congress passed the Voting Rights Act in August 1965. In 1966, we saw the rise of SNCC with Stokely Carmichael and the Black Panther Party with Huey P. Newton and Bobby Seale. After Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King was assassinated on April 4, 1968, the Fair Housing Act was signed into law April 11, 1968. So while Black people were making political and social gains on one hand, our leaders and movements were at the same time being attacked, killed, and destroyed. Then, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad departed in February 1975, and the Nation of Islam fell. After what appeared to be its total destruction, in September 1977, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan stood back up to rebuild the works of the Nation of Islam and to raise the name of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. As he worked, the attacks that had been suffered in the past developed into an all-out war on the Black community in general and on Black youth in particular. On November 4th, 1980, Ronald Reagan was elected President of the United States with George H.W. Bush as his Vice President.
I never realized at that time how deep the war was on the Black community. But under Reagan, Bush, they were fighting against the Contras in Nicaragua. Against the Sandinistas in Nicaragua. Because this is a socialist rising now in Central America. We already had Castro in Cuba, so America needed money to fight that war. And Congress wouldn't give money for that adventure. So Saudi Arabia, I believe Prince Bandar, the ambassador from Saudi to America, agreed, and they got $32 million to start the fight against the rise of the Sandinistas. And it is then that drugs, a very dangerous drug, a chemical concoction was made from cocaine and enter Freeway Rick Ross from California. He was an unwitting co-conspirator in the so-called war against drugs. But it wasn't a war against drugs. It was using drugs in a war that would incarcerate tens of thousands of Black youth. So the war was really on us. And so the Million Man March was our response to this. When Freeway Rick only wanted to make $1, he wasn't knowledgeable that he was a part of a conspiracy. Once he brought the drugs in and got paid, he was satisfied. It was good money. But the drugs were sent into the Black community. Out of the Black community was coming dollars for America to wage war against the rise of socialist governments in Central and South America. But now gangs were coming up, the Bloods, the Crips. They don't know that they are unwitting partners in a game of Black youth self-destruction. Public Enemy is a rap group that started educating with rap. But it was a conspiracy, since they were making money, not compromising who they were. The powerful music moguls were saying, we've got to buy in to rap. But they wanted to change rap into something that would, number one, fill prisons. Prison became big business. There was a meeting I read in outside of Los Angeles where record executives were invited to this meeting, but in the meeting were those who were buying prisons. And the talk was that gangster rap, they had to change from edutainment to gangster rap, what glorified the degenerate lifestyle among our people.
As crack cocaine was being funneled into the Black community in the early 80s and gangster rap in the early 90s, another front on the war on Black youth was being opened. However, Minister Farrakhan was given divine insight into the plans of the United States government. On September 17, 1985, Minister Farrakhan had a vision-like experience. He later held a press conference describing this experience.
In a tiny town in Mexico called Tepoztlan, there's a mountain on top of which is the ruins of a temple dedicated to Quetzalcoatl, the Christ figure of Central and South America. A mountain which I've climbed several times. However, on the night of September the 17th, 1985, I was carried up on that mountain in a vision with a few friends of mine. As we reached the top of the mountain, a wheel, or what you call an unidentified flying object, appeared at the side of the mountain, and I was called from the wheel to come up into the wheel. 3 metal legs appeared from the wheel, giving me the impression that it was going to land, but it never came over the mountain. Being somewhat afraid, I called to the members of my party to come with me, but a voice from the wheel spoke saying, "Not them, just you." I was told to relax, and a beam of light came from the wheel, and I was carried up on this beam of light into the wheel. I sat next to the pilot. However, I could not see him. I could only feel his presence. As the wheel lifted off from the side of the mountain, moving at a terrific speed, I knew I was being transported to the mother wheel or the mother plane, which is a human-built planet a half a mile by a half a mile, which the Honorable Elijah Muhammad taught us of for over 60 years. The pilot, knowing that I was fearful of seeing this great mechanical object in the sky, maneuvered his craft in such a way that I would not see the mother plane, and then backed quickly into it and docked in a tunnel. I was escorted by the pilot to a door and admitted into a room. I shall not bother you with a description of the room, but suffice it to say that at the center of the ceiling was a speaker, and through this speaker, I heard the voice of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad speaking to me as clearly as you hear my voice this morning. He spoke in short, cryptic sentences, and as he spoke, a scroll full of cursive writing rolled down in front of my eyes, but it was a projection of what was being written in my mind. As I attempted to read the cursive writing, which was in English, the scroll disappeared and the Honorable Elijah Muhammad began to speak to me again. He said, and I quote, "President Reagan has met with the Joint Chiefs of Staff to plan a war. I want you to hold a press conference in Washington, D.C., and announce their plan and say to the world that you got the information from me on the wheel," end quote. He said to me that he would not permit me to see him at that time, but he said that I had one more thing to do, and when that one more thing was done, I could come again to the wheel and I would be permitted to see him face to face. I am here to announce today that President Bush has met with his Joint Chiefs of Staff under the direction of General Colin Powell to plan a war against the black people of America, the Nation of Islam, and Louis Farrakhan, with particular emphasis on our black youth under the guise of a war against drug sellers, drug users, gangs, and violence. Then, of course, with my experience on the wheel, and I understood that the war that Reagan and his Joint Chiefs of Staff had planned against Libya also had a bearing on another small Muslim nation and on black people in general. So the war had started. And what most black people do not realize as we are sitting at this interview, that the government has been at war with the black community since the Reagan-Bush years in the White House.
The war on black youth by the government of the United States then expanded to include Hollywood. A picture was painted of out-of-control black youth through feature-length films. On April 15, 1988, Colors featuring Ice-T was released. On March 8, 1991, New Jack City, also featuring Ice-T, was released. On June 12, 1991, Boys in the Hood featuring Ice Cube was released. On January 17, 1992, Juice featuring Tupac Shakur was released. On April 17, 1992, Deep Cover featuring music by Dr. Dre and Snoop Dogg was released. On September 18, 1992, South Central was released. And on May 26, 1993, Menace to Society was released. A year after Colors was released, the Nation of Islam held a Savior's Day convention in Washington, D.C. on October 23, 1989, commemorating the birth of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. The subject was Stop the Killing. One day after the convention on October 24th, Minister Farrakhan held the press conference that described his vision-like experience and announced the government's war on the Nation of Islam, Black people in general, and Black youth in particular. After David Dinkins was elected mayor of New York City on November 7, 1989, Minister Farrakhan extended the theme of Stop the Killing into a nationwide tour on January of 1990.
And so I started a tour on stopping the killing because we saw that they were featuring young Black men in particular in films such as Colors, such as Menace to Society, New Jack City, all of these pictures which went throughout the world, but depicting young Black men as savage, as vicious, as really berserk, insane, little beasts. And so I thought that they were setting the stage so that when the attack on Black people came, there would be no outcry from the world, because we were looked at then as the Achilles heel of America. That this great nation had this weak thing inside it that they had no more jobs for. They had no real future here. So how do you get rid of a problem? And so we went on this tour, Stop the Killing. And I remember in New York City, we came to the Jacob Javits Center, and there was an election planned. David Dinkins was the mayor, and he was coming up for re-election if he would make a second term. And Black leaders, when they knew we were coming, we were going to go to Yankee Stadium to try and fill it. The Black leaders in New York came to me, and through, I can't remember who it was, but they did prevail on me, please, not to come, because Dinkins wants to be re-elected, and we feel that your presence would not be helpful to his having a second term. I said, well, I mean, if we filled Yankee Stadium, we could have Mr. Dinkins have a spokesperson there and encourage those persons to go to the polls and vote for him. That didn't fly with them. So I told them, okay. They said, if you don't come, when you do come, all of us will be in support of you. So I backed away from Yankee Stadium, went on the Stop the Killing tour. So when I did come to New York, we were at the Jacob Javits Center, and of course, thousands of persons came out, and the only leader that showed up in fulfillment of the promise that was made to me was the Reverend Al Sharpton. And during my talk that day, I asked the question, if I would come back and gather men to speak to an all-men's meeting, would you all come? And they cheered and said yes. And that's when going around the country again, just talking to black men started. I was advised not to do it by very strong people, but they said, you know, Farrakhan, if you go talking to all men, they will think you're trying to raise an army. And I weighed their request, and I said, well, I'm going to talk to black men. So I came to New York.
The Stop the Killing Tour event at the Jacob Javits Center on December 18th, 1993 in New York City would prove to be the last stop of that particular tour. But with Minister Farrakhan's announcement of a meeting for men only, the Stop the Killing Tour would then evolve into the Let Us Make Man Tour, with its first stop at the 369th Armory in Harlem, New York on January 24th, 1994.
And that night, the armory was filled to capacity. And women were coming, bringing their sons and telling them, you go in there and hear Farrakhan. And that night, when I spoke, I said, I want to take 1 million black men to Washington, D.C. And I think I may have used the term with 1 million man march or something like that. And when the word went out of my mouth, I watched it go out. And I didn't really believe that we could get 1 million men, but I had to go catch the word. The first thing I did, I wrote a letter to Imam Warithuddin Muhammad, and I wrote a letter to the Reverend Jesse Louis Jackson. And I asked both of them if they would join me, Imam Muhammad as a Muslim leader and Reverend Jackson as a Christian leader. I didn't hear from the Imam, and nor did I hear from Reverend Jackson.
Although he didn't hear from Imam Muhammad or from Reverend Jackson, Minister Farrakhan continued to repeat his call for 1 million black men to march on Washington, D.C. No one had ever thought of, or much less spoken of, a desire to bring 1 million black men to Washington, D.C. before the minister made the call. So, if Minister Farrakhan, the man who spoke those words, didn't really believe at that time that he could get 1 million black men, what did those who heard him speak the words Million Man March think about it?
Honorable Farrakhan was in New York City when he made the announcement. And I was just as stunned as everybody else when he said 1 million men. I just looked at it and said, wow. But I'm the type of person like this. Whatever the minister said he wanted, I go to work to make it happen. And I went with him all over this country.
As much as I love the minister, my first reaction was, yeah, right. 1 million men at one place. It never had happened before in history. And I just thought that was a very steep mountain to climb.
I was skeptical about it. I didn't think it would amount to much. And I remember wondering and beginning to hear about some of the controversy because of Minister Farrakhan's involvement with it. A lot of people think he's anti-Semitic. They feel badly about the things he says. And frankly, I wasn't sure about it myself. So I said, well, I don't know if this is going to be anything. It's controversial. What is this? That was my initial impression.
My initial reaction was pleasure, but I completely failed initially to comprehend the magnitude of what Minister Farrakhan was saying when he announced the Million Man March. Because of my deep-seated belief that he is divinely guided, there's no announcement he could make that I would react to as being beyond his capacity. And so when he said, I want 1 million men to meet me in Washington, D.C., my initial reaction was that it will happen. And that was essentially it.
But when I first heard about it, it sounded like something I wanted to be a part of because I knew it was going to be historical.
My whole intentions ever since I heard about it was like, it was necessary for us to be there to show that the solidarity amongst black men.
Now that the word was out that a 1 Million Man March was being planned, the Let Us Make Man tour began to take shape. After 14,000 men showed up in Harlem, the tour's next stop was the Strand Theater in Boston, Massachusetts, on March 10th, 1994. Then on March 21st, 1994, over 14,000 brothers showed up for a men's-only meeting at the Armory in Washington, D.C. On April 11th, 1994, 35,000 black men came out in Houston, Texas. And on April 25th, 1994, 10,000 men attended in Dallas, Texas. On the grassroots level, it was obvious that the Let Us Make Man tour in preparation for the 1 Million Man March was proving to be a rousing success. However, not everyone was happy about Minister Farrakhan's call for a 1 Million Man March.
I mean, men were really showing up. But then we started getting a lot of flack from some of those who organized marches in the past. And some of the pastors said, what does Farrakhan know about marches? You know, he said, we are the marchers. We could show him something about marching. And it said he's all backwards because we were marching on a Monday. And he said, nobody holds a march on Monday. We always hold it on Saturday. But I wasn't looking for a weekend crowd. We were looking for a group that was willing to make a sacrifice of a day's work, a day at school, to show God that we wanted to atone for being not so good fathers, not so good husbands, not so good brothers, and we wanted God's forgiveness.
The themes of sacrifice and atonement resonated within black men. The Let Us Make Man tour continued in May of 1994, with stops in New Orleans, Louisiana, and Atlanta, Georgia, which drew a crowd of 19,000. However, there seemed to be an issue that was beginning to develop: the role of the black woman relative to the 1 Million Man March.
Some of the activist women thought that this was a slight against females. But really, the mother of the march was Dorothy Height. And Dorothy Height, I learned, went to the hospital because one of the great civil rights leaders beat her up, not physically, but with words as to why she was supporting Louis Farrakhan. And she got sick over it, but she never wavered. She stood strong.
Well, actually, I had a different feeling from many women. I was there. I took an active part. And on that day, I said to the Million Men, I'm here because you are here. Because as I traveled across the country, everywhere I went, men were saying to me they were coming to the march. And I felt if the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan had called them and they were coming, that I wanted to be there.
But this was to honor black women. This was to say, we put you in the front line when they had dogs on us in the South. We put you on the front line to take the fire hose in the face. It was little black girls who were blown to smithereens and decapitated while they were in Sunday school. And so today we're going to stand up and be a man and take the role as protector and provider. Dorothy Height, Dr. Dorothy Height, absolutely blew me away because I knew of her vaguely because of history, and I had never met her in person prior to that time, and I was blessed to meet her. Dorothy Height, to me, confirmed who Minister Farrakhan is to us today.
On June 25th, 1994, during the Let Us Make Man tour, Minister Farrakhan held a women's-only meeting in Atlanta, Georgia, entitled "A Nation Can Rise No Higher Than Its Woman." Given the fact that 15,000 women showed up for that event, it was clear that Black women were firmly in support of Black men and the Million Man March. The Let Us Make Man tour then continued with stops all across the country. By May 25th, 1995, the tour ended with a total of 14 stops, with its last one in Chicago, Illinois. The foundation of the Million Man March was now established by the Let Us Make Man tour. However, the organizational structure for the Million Man March had yet to be set up. In June 1995, Reverend Ben Chavis, who was no longer with the NAACP, was named the National Director of the Million Man March. Reverend Chavis took on the task of developing the National Organizing Committee and the local organizing committees all across the country.
We had a meeting in Chicago at Reverend Clay Evans' church, and we had pretty much every denomination on board in the country at that time. And of course, many of them had not gotten permission from their parent bodies to say they were on board, but had personally committed to be on board.
Let's start with the Reverend Dr. Ben Chavis at the time. He was like the assistant in bringing the march together with Reverend Willie Wilson, Reverend Albert Sampson of Chicago, the great Reverend Bishop Stallings. Oh my goodness. It was a coming together. In every city, we had local organizing committees. Reverend Ben Chavis was magnificent. Reverend Willie Wilson, Sister Claudette Marie Muhammad, all of the staff of the Nation of Islam, ministers and helpers, they were all a part of these local organizing committees. Maulana Karenga, he, along with Hakeem Madabuti, Dr. Conrad Worrell, Reverend Al Sampson, and others, we met in Chicago, and Dr. Karenga went back and authored a piece that was like what's the right word I'm looking for? The guiding principles, not only for the Million Man March, but beyond.
With the national and local organizing committees in place, more and more men and women were able to contribute in whatever ways they could to the success of the march. As the work was getting done in the field, spiritual leaders from all types of faiths and schools of thought began to come together to contribute to the principles of atonement, responsibility, and reconciliation. The culmination of this spiritual unity was manifested on September 19th, 1995, on the campus of Howard University at Rankin Chapel.
And as Elijah Muhammad said to us, we don't need to go to the government to ask them to declare a holiday for somebody that we love. We declare it and we do it. So we declared Monday, October 16th, as the Day of Atonement, and we made it a national holiday. And we had reverence of every stripe. And I see this is a Muslim, Christian, nationalist, Hebrew Israelite. All of us were involved in something that was bigger than all of us. So right here at Howard, at is it Rankin Chapel, we had a beautiful showing of all these religious leaders, and we declared October 16th a national holiday. We weren't going to school, we weren't going to work, we weren't even going to shop in white stores. We were going to keep our money on that day. And in fact, I'm getting excited now, but I was the last one, if the truth be told, to know what was really happening in the field, because I was preaching everywhere I could go. But the field work was going on, and it was Muslims, Christians, nationalists, brothers, sisters, sororities, fraternities, everybody that wanted to see it successful went to work.
One of the fraternities that wanted to see the Million Man March successful was Phi Beta Sigma Fraternity Incorporated. They opened the doors to their international headquarters in Washington, D.C., allowing their facility to become the national headquarters for the Million Man March. As the base of operations for the march shifted from Chicago, Illinois to Washington, D.C., Mayor Marion Barry announced that he and his administration were in full support of the event. With the march shaping up to be the largest event in the history of Washington, D.C., many different levels of cooperation had to take place between the march leadership, Washington, D.C. government, and the federal government.
I said to the minister, anything that's at my disposal is at your disposal, whether it's personnel, whether it's staff, whether it's logistical people, whether it's buses, whether it's trucks to clean up after ourselves. Anything that's there is yours, and not just yours, but to the African American community. Well, it was hard work atmosphere. We got to get it done atmosphere. There was no joking, it's crack a joke now and then, that's natural. But it was all serious business. We took this as an order from God that we had and we must participate in this, give it all we got.
We had to come in and meet with every law enforcement agency in America. That was unbelievable. That's the untold story. Because I still don't understand, why did we have to meet with the Army, the Navy? What did they have to do with this? But I had to meet with every FBI, CIA, you name it, and we met with them. We met at the mayor's office in the conference room, and I'm talking about the place was packed with all kind of law enforcement officers, man. This was a huge undertaking for Don Louis Farrakhan with his faith. I drew from his faith, and we made it happen by the grace of God.
It was clear in the weeks and days before the Million Man March that the efforts of those that wanted to see it successful were overcoming the efforts of those that wanted to see the march fail. Some who were originally against the march became supporters. The media, due to the huge groundwell of support, was forced to cover the march as it was about to unfold. The federal government in Washington, D.C., announced that it would be closed on Monday, October 16th, and the President of the United States, Bill Clinton, decided to leave town. Congress also closed down for that day. Now that the Million Man March was becoming a reality, what effect was it having on both the supporters of the march and its critics?
I'm not going to fault the Johnny-come-latelys who came or speak negatively of them. It's only a sign that if the grassroots, which is the base of the success of the Million Man March and many of the leaders that we talked about, but the common people, then all the rest of the naysayers, when they saw something that they had never ever seen before and couldn't even envision it, they all wanted to be on the program. Who wouldn't want to talk to 1 million, 2 million black men? But putting the program together was a major undertaking, because now at the last minute, Congress that was closed down that day, many members of the Black Caucus showed up. They wanted to talk. Although in the beginning, Reverend Jackson was not on board, later, near the end of the process, Reverend Jackson did come in Chicago on board.
The Million Man March, October 16th, 1995. The holy day declared by the grassroots of Black people in America had finally arrived. After all of the planning, the preaching, the traveling, the groundwork, and the meetings, how would the day unfold?
By divine order of God, I went into the CVS, which was around the corner. I don't know DC too well, out of being there hundreds and hundreds of times, because it's a circular city. I used to always get lost. I went into CVS to get something, I think some water or whatever, and online was my father. And I didn't talk to him earlier on the day. I knew he was going to be there, but he was coming up from Atlanta. I was coming from New York, and I was like, well. And then we happened to run into each other in the CVS.
I just remember being out there and just in awe of the whole experience, just being around that many men, the knowing everything that led up to that prior to the excitement around it, and then actually have it there, be in the midst of it. It was just overwhelming. I was in awe. That's how I would describe it.
My experience was that of a change within myself. We was more given in a focus on ourselves and how to love each other. More men, brotherhood, striving as one cause. We were able to see that day at the mall a display of love and unity. There was nobody at that time that you ran across or that you may have bumped into that particular day that didn't say, "Excuse me, brother. Oh, pardon me, sir." It was all demonstrating politeness one to another. So at that same day, I was able to learn that the Black man can get along. The Black man does love each other, but the Black man needs a guide and a leader to get us to that point.
I didn't know that 1 million men would show up. But I was in the hotel, and some of the brothers that went out came back and said, "Minister, there's over 150,000 men on the mall already, and it's like near midnight the night before." I said, "Are you sure?" He said, "Yes." So now the next morning, the sun is rising, and the great Sheikh Tajani is making the call to prayer, and they're telling me now it's over 500,000 out there. Wow. Now the minister is just blown completely away.
By the time the sun rose, a sea of men rose. And by the time it was midday, that tide of men crashed on the steps of the nation's capital. It was a sea of men. They rose like a tide. They came to the shore.
On the morning of the Million Man March, after prayer was called at sunrise, and nearly 500,000 men were already on the National Mall, Minister Farrakhan received 2 guests in his hotel suite, the Reverend Jesse Jackson and H.H. Brookins of the African Methodist Episcopal Church, both of whom marched with Dr. King.
Reverend Jackson came to the suite. Bishop Brookins of the AME Church came to the suite. And Reverend Jackson asked how much time he was going to get in delivering what he wanted to deliver. And I said, "Reverend, I can't put a time on you. You go and say what is in your heart to say, and when you're finished, you're finished." I don't know nobody that organized something that would say something like that. But that's the kind of love and respect that I have for Reverend Jackson. And Bishop Brookins asked me, he said, Minister, are you going to use this march to proselytize your faith? I said, no. I said, I am going to ask those men to join an organization that is fighting for the liberation of our people, and to join a church, a mosque, a synagogue, where spiritual values are being taught. He said, you would do that, Farrakhan? I said, yes.
After meetings in his hotel room on the morning of the Million Man March ended, Minister Farrakhan then moved from the hotel suite to a green room that was set up for him in the United States Capitol building. Meanwhile, the program for the march was unfolding on the west front grounds of the Capitol. There were 4 sessions held from the early morning to the late afternoon. Muslim ministers, Christian pastors, African drummers, government employees, union workers, university professors, African nationals, congresspersons, and city mayors all participated. Some of the most notable presentations were by women, including Cora Masters Berry, Dr. Betty Shabazz, Mother Tynetta Muhammad, Attorney E. Faye Williams, Rosa Parks, and Dr. Dorothy Height.
So if you look at the March on Washington in 1963, to the best of my knowledge, the only woman that was on the program was Mahalia Jackson. Other than that, I don't think women were on the program. The opposite was true with the Million Man March, because Betty Shabazz was there, Maya Angelou was there, the mother of the civil rights movement, Rosa Parks, was there. Brother Malcolm's daughter was with the mother, she was there. And women were behind the scenes helping to organize it. Cora Masters Berry, the mayor of Washington, and his wife, there wouldn't have been a march without them. And then the Reverend Willie Wilson and Reverend Mary Wilson and all the members of his church. And there were women all over the country that were intrigued that men wanted to atone for being less than what we should be.
The Million Man March program then began moving towards its conclusion. Other great dignitaries spoke, including Martin Luther King III, Reverend Jeremiah Wright, Reverend James Luther Bebel, Dr. Cornel West, Reverend Joseph Lowry, and Reverend Jesse Jackson. But it was clear that the men on the mall were ready to hear from the man of the hour, Minister Farrakhan.
I stayed up in a room. I let everybody who wanted to speak, speak. I never interfered. The people were down there chanting, Farrakhan, Farrakhan. Farrakhan stayed up in the Capitol building, listening, looking. And when finally it came time for me to speak, it was almost maybe a few hours before sunset. And to be very honest, I'm telling you the absolute truth. As I walked down those stairs, my son Mustafa introduced me. It was like I felt like a leaf that was under some wind and I was just floating down, not fully conscious of the dynamics of this magnificent thing that was in front of me. I mean, it was an amazing show of unity. And I guess it tells us in a simple way that the thing that's holding us back is us. Our pettiness, our divisions. But we have to have a cause bigger than our foolishness that will allow us to stop looking at each other and start looking at the success of a vision and a cause bigger than ourselves. And that is what the Million Man March accomplished.
As the Million Man March came to a close, the 2 million men that showed up on October 16th went peacefully on their way back to their respective communities. If the Million Man March was our response to the war on black youth, then those that fought against the march were certainly dealt a serious blow. But it didn't take long before criticism, distortions, and lies started to surface from the United States government and the media. The National Park Service estimated the crowd to be 400,000, while it was clear that the crowd easily exceeded 1 million and possibly surpassed 2 million. Some took issue that the fact that a Muslim called for the march and many Christians responded. Some felt that the march could have been organized better.
Barack Obama was among the 2 million. And Barack later wrote, it was great, but it could have been organized better. He's not wrong, but he wasn't in the mix. If Barack had come out of the shadows when he knew the Million Man March was going to take place, he was already an organizer. I never saw Brother. If he had come and said, brother, can I help organize? Of course he could. We would have been stronger. My point is, even though we were successful, the greatest success would have been the day after the march, not all the great work that we did before the march.
The media tried to separate the message from the messenger, trying to convince the public that black men came to the Million Man March for the principles only, and not also for the one through whom the march was called. Because the Million Man March was not sponsored by businesses or philanthropists, many accused the Nation of Islam for raising money for itself from the men on the National Mall on that day. One of the favorite refrains of critics of the march is, "What happened to the money?" Bishop H.H. Brookins of the AME Church was a speaker at the march, but when he had visited Minister Farrakhan at his hotel suite that morning, he too had concerns about how money raised for and from the Million Man March would be used.
People raised questions in the aftermath of the march. What happened to the money? Well, there was no the money. You know, first of all, we did not sell tickets to this event. It was an open invitation to all black men, and that had to be paid for. We had to have porta-johns. We had the jumbotrons so that everyone could see and hear. The city was essentially shut down. Washington, D.C., U.S. Capitol, was shut down.
Then he asked, and what about the money? You know, where's the money gonna go? I said, we've engaged 3 CPA firms, and we're going to give our people an audit of every nickel, every dime, and every dollar. Now, I know this had never been done before. Nobody gave an audit at any march that came on that mall, and people philanthropists that put up their money, you know. whatever. They had the money to give away, and black folk had the money to spend, but nobody gave an audit. But the money didn't come from philanthropists. The largest donation came from Michael Jackson, and he donated $100,000. And next to Michael, in advertising, was Mr. Bob Johnson of BET. And everybody, the nation raised over $500,000 for the march. The minister gave well over $100,000 from the charity that the believers give to me. Much more than $100,000. I probably gave $250,000, and I'm not saying that for credit, because the record will show I never got a dime. I want you to. This is the untold story.
Yes, sir.
I, Louis Farrakhan, that called the march, never got as much as a dime or as little as a penny.
The audit conducted on the Million Man March showed that there was a net loss of over $60,000, with no monies unaccounted for. After the Million Man March was over, the media proceeded to do its spin on it. As a result, Minister Farrakhan thought very deeply about his next move. What could possibly be done after the success of the Million Man March? And what could be done to further the fight to save young black men?
After the Million Man March was over, I felt a sense of emptiness, loss, because I couldn't figure now, what is the next step? What should we do? And I went out to Phoenix at the Honorable Elijah Muhammad's home in Phoenix. And I meditated and prayed. And this is what came to me. After the Million Man March that was seen all over the world, I said the enemy would want to go east to show them that we are not true Muslims because of this controversial aspect of our teachings. So it dawned on me that I should go east and tie the nation to the Islamic world and tie Black America to the struggle of Africa. And so that is the precipitant of our trip and our World Friendship Tour. So now I'm in Muslim capitals and I'm preaching. No way in heaven or hell after they heard me that they wouldn't say he's a real Muslim. In fact, I think we were in Egypt. I think it may have been Egypt. And I was questioned about Master Farad Muhammad.
You want to quote your own website here. There's a passage that says, we believe
that Allah, parentheses God, appeared in the person of Master W. Fard Muhammad, July 1930, the long-awaited Messiah of the Christians and the Mahdi of the Muslims. Now, I think that would be controversial among the mainstream Muslims. Could you understand or clarify these statements that God appeared in the person of Fard in Detroit?
With all due respect to you from the Washington Times, you are certainly no authority on what would create confusion among mainstream Muslims. And of course, I understand your motive for raising such a question, but I will answer you very succinctly in a way that I believe all Muslims would understand. First of all, the Holy Prophet, peace be upon him, said to all of us in his hadith that the Mahdi would come. out of his family, and the whole Muslim world is expecting Mahdi, number one. The Muslim world also is expecting the return of Jesus coming with Mahdi. And the third point is the Shiite Muslims are looking for the hidden Imam or the 12th Imam, which is called Imam Mahdi. And they thought that Ayatollah Khomeini was that Imam, but from his own lips, he said he was not Mahdi. Now, why does the Muslim Ummah need a Mahdi? The Mahdi is a guide. And you don't need a guide if you have not lost your way. And no one can deny that the Islamic world has lost the path of Allah that they were guided to from the time of Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. He said 3 generations after him would no longer be of him, which meant that he knew that his ummah would go astray, and therefore the Mahdi was prophesied to come. We believe that the Mahdi has come, and that he came in the person of W. Farad Muhammad. And why do we say Allah? Because if you look at the attributes of Allah, starting with mercy, beneficence, starting with Malik, a judge, or Rabbil Alameen, one who nurtures something from one stage and makes it attain stage after stage until it reaches perfection. He's Wali, the protecting friend. He's Jabbar. He's all of this. Well, you tell me, who visited us since I came up in America that most of you are afraid of? But I have no fear of that is the power in the world. Who protects me? You don't, they don't. But I come and go as I please because Allah is with me. He came to us. His beneficence and his mercy raised me. I never was taught in Al-Azhar, nor in any school of theology in the Islamic world. But if you listen to me, you will know that I have been taught by a master, because no master over here has defeated and can defeat what I have been taught of a master. I am here to awaken a world that has gone to sleep. If you listen to me and hear what I say, you will awaken to your responsibility and come back to Allah. Thank you for your question. I know you didn't intend it for good, but God brought good out of it anyway. And the answer that we gave, the Muslims were just happy and shocked and grateful that Allah had raised up a brother in America that was so strong in defending Islam against the disbelievers. In the Sudan, everywhere we went, we were wildly cheered and greatly accepted from the top all the way down, even in the holy city of Mecca in Arabia. So it was a great time for us. And of course, the media here said he squandered all the good that he had gained from the Million Man March, going overseas, grubbing for money. To hell with you and your money. I have God. We weren't grubbing for no money. We were connecting the nation of Islam with the entire Muslim world, and Black America's struggle with the struggle of Pan-Africanists all over our planet. And we were successful.
The success of the Million Man March and the World Friendship Tours were felt all throughout America and the world. The march effectively beat back the negative images of Black youth and presented a positive and sober-minded view of our young people in 1995. However, over the years, it appeared that the condition of Black people, especially young men, had worsened more than it was before the Million Man March. What happened?
We are in a worse condition because we are at war, but we don't know that we're at war. Anytime somebody is working to destroy you and you don't know it, you can become an unwitting partner in your own destruction. Prison became big business. So the drug culture and the gang culture came together to begin destroying our youth. Our young girls then being turned into prostitutes when the young ones who were the drug runners and others found that, man, we're going to jail for this, then they started using women as prostitutes. So all throughout the country, there's the degeneration of the Black man into a total savage, and the Black woman as a street urchin. And some of our Black men are doing highly skilled labor in prison for some of the top corporations in America. This is part of the war on young Black men and now women. And we are party to the war and don't know that we're at war. So the minister, the follower of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, is on top of the mountain sounding the alarm as a watchman, because the rest of the watchmen are asleep on the job. Ain't nobody warning our people of the wicked intentions of the government of the United States on them. That's why the nation has to survive. And that's why the truth has to be told. But how can they know the truth except somebody's strong enough to tell it?
Minister Farrakhan was and is that somebody strong enough to tell the truth about the war against our Black youth. The Million Man March was our response to this war. The Million Man March, the untold story, is a story that remains untold by the mainstream media, the revisionists, and those who are hateful that a Muslim would call a march attended mostly by Christians. We must give credit where credit is due. To God belongs the credit and the glory. But God chose the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan to tell the truth. We should understand that there is no separation of the man, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, from the message of the Million Man March. The Million Man March, the untold story, is the history that should be told and written correctly.
To try something impossible. And I think that's the legacy to me of the Million Man March, is that everyone can consider, look in the mirror and say, what can I do that I know I can't do? And then try it. Because that's what I think the march represented. When that thing succeeded, it really let you know that anything's possible. You just have to start with belief and faith, but ignore what you see and just bring it into existence.
My heart wasn't in it for money or for fame. I wanted to save the lives of young Black men and show the world that we could be at peace with one another, a loving community, a united community that is worthy of life and protection for that life. My goal was reached, not about money, but about raising the level of consciousness of us, that if we can love each other and stand in ranks for 14 hours, shoulder to shoulder, then we can do it for 14 days, for 14 weeks, for 14 months, for 14 years, for eternity. All we had to show them, it can be done. And God blessed us all to do it.
Jalil, representing hip-hop legend Houdini on the Million Man March, was a lifetime event for me, and I'm more than grateful to have been a part of it.
Harold Rock is Funk C, calling from Augusta, Georgia. I just knew I had to be there. I just knew in my heart and in my soul that I had to make my way up to this historical event.
Yes, this is Anthony A. Tones Muhammad. I'm calling about the Million Man March. It really helped me as a brother to understand the importance of being a good husband and a good father.
Hi, my name is Derek. I'm from Dallas, Texas. And the Million Man March was a day for Black men to take charge of their lives and their communities by showing respect for themselves.
Hey, my name is Hollis Renado, Hollis from Michigan. You know, I didn't go to the Million Man March, but I wish I had them. I wish I could have, but I didn't. But I support whatever they did.
Hi, this is Tim Jackson from Kentwood, Michigan, calling about the Million Man March. I think that was a very wonderful idea. The Million Man March was the first time that people heard from the artist Nonchalant. During that time, 5 o'clock was definitely a pivotal record that was speaking directly to what was happening during that time in our lives. So the marketing team and promotions team received 5,000 copies, cassette copies, and went to the Million Man March and passed out 5,000 copies. Now that doesn't seem like a lot with a million men, but when I run into someone 10 years later and this actually happened, saying, I received your record for the first time at the Million Man March, and it really moved me, an incredible feeling that I can't speak of. That's what the Million Man March means to me. Thanks. This is Nonchalant.
Okay, everyone, I'm unmute everyone here. Here we go. Oh, that's me. Oh, that wasn't there. Okay. Okay, everyone should be able to unmute themselves at this point. So if anyone has any questions or comments, please feel free to chime in. While we're doing that, I'll check the chat to see if there's anything relevant that we can share. And in preparation for this next part, where we're just going to show some of the unseen footage after the minister's interview, and then we'll close it out from there. So does anyone have any questions or any comments? Brother Anthony 7, if you're speaking, you're on mute. Oh, let me try to unmute you then. Hold on. I got it.
Oh, there we go.
Yes, sir.
Oh, wow. Thank you.
And you're off camera a little bit. You might want to lift your.
Oh, there we go.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I want to thank everyone for taking the time to be a part of this historical event this evening. I just was reflecting throughout the presentation where I was and some of the things that I went through even prior to coming to be a part of this historic presentation. I know that I can say that the year prior to this event, 1994, I happened to be a lieutenant in the Nation of Islam, and how we were getting instructions to go throughout the city. You know, they made the headquarters here in Washington, and we were regularly being deployed out into the street as foot soldiers to get the word out. And there's a lot of reflection on the work that was being done up until the march. I got one surprise. We went even into the prison system, and the captain at that time, he had me and a few other brothers attend the service with him inside. We were in Norton, and I thought I was just going for security. And next thing you know, he was saying, Brother Anthony, I'm going to need you to talk about the field work that's in the street. And so one thing you learn about in the nation, you got to be prepared, because you got to step up at any time sometimes. So I was able to, go on and make a presentation to the brothers inside Lorton, share what we were doing in the streets. They really wanted to know what was happening as far as the spirit prior to the march. And so they were very happy to get that from us, and we were able to share a very high spirit at that time.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Brother Anthony.
Yes, sir.
Just real quick, I wanted to, first of all, thank everyone who made comments in the chat. There were some critique of our presentation. I just wanted to, first of all, in the spirit of atonement, that I wanted to apologize for the technical difficulties. As you can see, we are a family, and we're not a major corporation. So what you saw in the film and what you're seeing today is really just a few of us working together out of love for the message, the love for Ms. Farrakhan, and the spirit that we were given from the May March to do what we're doing. So please forgive us if there were some distractions or it was a little annoying during the presentation. But if you want to watch it uninterrupted in the comfort of your own home, in the chat, I'm placing the website. You can go to vanguardtvn.com and order your own personal copy of the DVD. And not only does it come with the documentary that you just saw, but there's another feature, which is an uncut version of the minister's interview, where it's the whole interview from beginning to end. It's edited for clarity at some points, but it's uncut. Everything that he said is in that interview. So it's two parts in the document, in the DVD when you get it. The other thing is we have inside the DVD package an insert where on one side of it is the pledge that the men recited at the May Man March. And on the other side of it is a summary of the audit that was shown in the documentary to show that there was in fact a debt at the end of the event, and there was no profit made or any money to be shared at the end of it. As a matter of fact, we had the opportunity to meet with the minister and give him two copies of the documentary DVD, and we explained that to him, and he said, "And who paid the debt, brother?" That's what Ms. Farrakhan said. "Who paid the debt, brother?" And I didn't know how to answer the question. I knew we had a debt, but I wasn't sure how the debt was taken care of. He said, "I paid the debt, brother." So not only did the minister give the amount of money that he said he gave in the documentary, when the debt was there at the end and had to be paid, he paid for it himself out of the charity, again, that we give to him. So I just wanted to share that real briefly. So if anyone else want to chime in, please do. I do want to hear from Sister Kamara Muhammad. We showed the music you heard And, actually most people that have seen the documentary said that they enjoyed the music. Some may not have enjoyed it, but the music was a collaborative effort between myself and Sister Kamara and some producers that she knew. So all that music was original. Sister Kamara, if you could chime in on your role in that, and also if you want to say any words about the producers that were involved in the music.
Okay, can you hear me? Okay.
Yes,
Yes, ma'am.
We can hear you.
Okay, Assalamualaikum, everyone.
Walaikum salam.
So I believe that when Sister Angela asked us to, gather music for this extraordinary documentary, I went into my Rolodex of producers, and I actually put out a call because I'm also a DJ, so I know a lot of producers that make music, and I put out a call to see, if anybody would be willing to work with this documentary that I'm a part of, and 2 producers took the call, and one of them was a young brother named Sirach, and the other brother is named DJ King C. DJ King C is a brother that I don't know if any hip hop heads are listening or watching, but if you remember Wu-Tang had a lot of affiliates, and one of those affiliates was the Beggars, and most of the Beggars were from the Washington, D.C. area, and King C was their DJ and their producer. And I went to high school with one of the Beggars. So we've all stayed friends, and a lot of the Beggars, they're mostly 5%ers. So there's that connection with the nation and the 5%ers. So, but all of that music is all original. We did have to, I feel like Brother Anthony, if I'm not correct, please correct me, but I feel like we did have to find some free music online as well to kind of make sure that there wasn't an overlap of the beats that they sent in. So I feel like that's correct. It's been such a long time, but
I believe you're right. I think most of the music, of course, were from the producers, but I think there were a few parts there where we did, go out and find some, free or music that didn't need to be licensed to use.
Right.
So thank you so much, Sister Kamara.
Oh, you're welcome.
AKA DJ Earth One.
I just want to thank her again and the producers, because as a filmmaker, that music helps to set, the atmosphere or set the scene. And when you don't have a lot of money to begin with, it's hard to find music that works within your film. So to be able to work with DJ Earth One and my husband, who will help with the music, and the producers, they, to have them help with the music was really awesome. And I appreciate them for that.
Thank you. So thank you both, Sister Kamara, Sister Angela. At this time, we do have a raised hand. Brother Tony Muhammad, do you have a—
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Go ahead.
Assalamu alaikum, family.
Salam.
I have the video. I have a copy of it. I love it. I haven't seen it in a while. When I saw the post on Facebook about the Zoom conference, I was like, you know what? Let me just, I've seen it before. I have a copy of it, but let me go ahead and get on And it was such a joy to me just hearing both of you and Sister Kamara right now, my brother Anthony Seven, just giving the kind of testimony that you had, because we have to understand that this is a labor of love, as it was put earlier. Much of the work that we do in the Nation of Islam, we don't get paid for it. Those of us that are actually doing work to help improve the condition of our people, no matter if we speak English or hablamos español, or parler Creole, or whatever language we are on the, we speak on the planet, our focus is to improve the condition of our people and save the lives of our people. On that note, I do have a question for Brother Anthony Seven. I wanted to ask, just being in the thick and thin of it, just helping organize and just working on the ground level, what were some of the most challenging things that you experienced just working on that level every day, preparing and organizing for the Million Man March?
Assalamu alaikum, brother Tony.
Wa alaikum salam, sir.
Brother, I'll say being in tune and prepared to grind every day. Because it started right after prayer. We would hit the street and it would go all day sometime. And we're talking about weeks at a time. So just having the proper spirit and being in a place where you need to be. I know that there was one time, the nation is about being on time where you need to be at. And being a lieutenant, you're in charge of men and you're responsible for getting them to report where they need to be at. I was coming to the headquarters of the Million Man March and the captain was there and I was late. I don't know, remember Anthony, remember that. And man, I tell you, I caught some heat right in front of all the men.
Like it was yesterday.
Why you late, brother Anthony? I said, no excuse, sir. He said, you busted. Oh man, he just went in on me. I just had to, suck it up, say, yes, sir, and continue to focus on doing the work. And that's how we had to do. One of the things was we had a lot of men coming in and out of the city from different areas. So the men in the city had to be guides for the groups of men who were going out into the neighborhoods. So one of the things was to really keep your energy up high, stay focused, and don't allow your emotions to be on your shoulders. You had to rise above emotions.
Yes,
stay
sir.
focused on the mission.
Thank you, Brother Anthony.
Yes, sir.
Tony.
Yes, sir.
We're about to, we can go ahead and go into our next, our last section here is going to show a portion of the interview with the minister that is not in the documentary. And then it's at the end of that, there's footage after we finish the interview with the minister where we give him gifts. And we want to share that with everyone so they can see the responses, the response from the minister to what we're trying to share with him. So do we have any more? Well, we can take more questions and finish our discussion after we watch this portion. So please take a moment and enjoy this last piece.
This is part of the war on young black men and now women. And we are party to the war and don't know that we're at war. So the follower of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, is on top of the mountain sounding the alarm as a watchman, because the rest of the watchmen are asleep on the job. Ain't nobody warning our people of the wicked intentions of the government of the United States on them. That's why the nation has to survive. And that's why the truth has to be told. But how can they know the truth except somebody's strong enough to tell it? And that's why I'm encouraging all these so-called ministers, get on your post and be a watchman on the wall, or you will be dying on your post from the chastisement of Allah. Now, what can we do to change that reality? I don't know. All I know is Elijah Muhammad said to me, brother, it's going to take more than preaching to change our people. I'll preach as long as he allows me to preach, but soon he's going to shut my mouth. And God help you when you don't hear my voice no more. I'm saying this to all of you because many of us are going to die under the chastisement of God because we know the truth and won't tell the truth, won't go to our people and seek to save them. We think that eating a bowl of bean soup and looking good and pretty is enough? Hell no. If you're not willing to sacrifice to get our people up out of the condition that they're in, then you're worthy of the chastisement of God. And that's on the way. My time among you is coming to an end. And I know that a chastisement, you know how it is when daddy, you at home with mama and you've been acting the fool and mama said, wait till your daddy come home. And then you petrified because daddy gonna tear that butt up. Well, I'm like your mother. That's how the messengers of God are characterized in the book. They're characterized as a mother. But my father, your father, is angry as hell at this condition. So the whipping is on the way. And let me tell you, if you read the Quran like I read it, or study the Bible like I study it, you know that the chastisement of God is something to be feared. And he said there'd be 1 year of it where you wish for death, but death will flee from you. You know, I've been preaching for 57 years.
Yes, sir.
You know, a man does get tired, not tired of preaching, but tired of rejection. Tired of people applauding but not dancing to the rhythm of the truth. So God is tired too. So I'll close with this. Elijah Muhammad, the eternal leader of the Nation of Islam, was teaching a series in Chicago in 1972 called The Theology of Time. He told me that when he went up on the rostrum and was teaching, I think it was his 23rd week, he said, in the middle of the lecture, he said, God took his spirit. He closed the lecture, came down off that rostrum, and never went back in that mosque again until they brought in what they called was his body 3 years later in 1975. I'm telling all of you, this is no sport and this is no play. You have to watch the minister, because I am the clock of time for you. And when you hear that God takes my spirit and I don't come out to talk to you no more, that's, you're going to have to take it from there. But I do know everything is going to be all right after Daddy whipped all the butts that he has to whip, and none of them are big enough to challenge. Not the government of America, all the way down to our foolishness today. Thank you for your questions. Thank you for the time. And I pray that you have asked people much more knowledgeable than I. If you've talked to Sister Claudette Marie Muhammad, if you've talked to Reverend Ben Chavis, if you've talked to Willie Wilson, if you've talked to Marion Barry and Cora Masters Barry, if you've talked to Sister Barbara Skinner, if you've talked to some of the laborers in Chicago who worked, I mean, they were tireless, indefatigable workers for this cause. They can tell you more about the Million Man March than I. I never saw it. To this day, I haven't seen it. I just know that Allah used me to call it, and it was successful. But to ask me all the details about the innards of it, I was too busy preaching.
Yes, sir.
But may Allah bless you to get all that you're seeking.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Brother Minister, so much.
No, thank you. First of all, for your wonderful pay. Where's Angela?
Oh, here I am.
She's here.
Thank you for your wonderful patience.
Yes, sir.
Thank you so much. And I pray that it will be as successful as you hope it will be.
Yes, sir.
Thank you for the photographers and videographers and all of you for helping our sisters to make this what it hopefully will be.
Yes, sir. Thank you so
Also, on
much.
behalf of the Ministry of Arts and Culture, we have a couple of gifts that we wanted to present to you.
Yeah, here they are, you and you. These are the gifts. I couldn't ask for a better gift than those with you in producing this documentary. Now you can present. Thank you.
So on behalf of Washington, D.C., Ministry of Arts and Culture, we wanted to share with you this piece of art. It was done by Nazira Muhammad, who was 17 years old. She's registered in Mosque Number 4, and she's one of the sisters who traveled to Grenada. She attended MUI from kindergarten to the 9th grade, and she's now being accepted into Howard University in September. She'll be studying astronomy and physics. On behalf of the local community, we want to present it to you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. I tell her that I'm honored beyond words to receive it, and I'm going to try to study it because she's saying so much in this. I want to see what her mind has caused her to put down on paper. Thank you very, very much.
And is it possible to get a group shot?
Yes, of course. I'm sorry I'm not dressed
sorry.
in
One
my
more gift.
usual suit and tie.
Go to Minister.
Yes, sir.
We have in this bag, it's a rose quartz. It's one of the highest vibration rocks. It's a mineral. So you can put it beside your bed. It gives off love. It gives off positive energy. So within this, it's a.
Did you take it out?
Yes, sir. So that is a rose quartz, which was sent by Sister Kamara Muhammad and I. And this is a rose quartz. You sit it beside your bed, and it just gives off a lot of healing minerals, a lot of high vibration stone. So that is what we call the rose quartz. And also too, if you think about it, the rose quartz is pink, it's white. It's the higher chakra. It goes from right here, so it's hovering over you. So it's the higher chakra, and that gives off the vibration energy.
I thank you. And is it your wife?
Yes, sir.
You thank her. You know, everything of Allah's creation is a part of the energy of his love.
Sir.
And I have to look more into what this is so I can represent it better. But it's beautiful.
Thank you,
for
sir.
sure. Where did it come from?
She is a Reiki practitioner. So I believe that came from Asheville, North
Carolina.
Yes, sir.
Up in the mountains.
Mm-hmm. She does a lot of healing work. She's a DJ also. She goes to the Muslim of 4.
Yes, she's registered in the mosque. And
yes.
she's also an auditor too.
Mm-hmm.
Well, North Carolina is a special place for me.
Yeah.
And Asheville is a great place in the mountains that I never visited, but I heard a lot about Asheville.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. And also, one last thing, I want to thank you also for answering the tweet for the Proceeds Project about where we can donate money for prostate cancer in your name. So this right here is 3 t-shirts, 2 extra large and a large, and it says you can't check yourself. So basically, as men,
you gotta get checked.
You got it. You can't even do it yourself. Because if you can, you a bad brother. If you can do it yourself. So and that's what we say, because this is for the hip hop community, and we try to give that energy out and let the brothers know that you definitely gotta.
Thank you. Thank you for the extra large, brother, but we're coming down.
So there's 2 extra larges in there and the large. So when you come down, you can put on the extra large. Put on that large.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Everybody get a group shot?
Yes.
Okay. Thank the final call. Let's take this picture, please. Hanging out with me all day. Thanks.
All right, everyone. Hope you enjoyed that. That was after the end of the interview with the minister, and he, as you can see, he was very gracious in receiving those gifts. We actually had the opportunity, like I said earlier, to go back and see him another time as the Ministry of Arts and Culture and present him with the finished copies of the DVDs. So does anyone else have any comments about what we just saw or any questions for those of us who were part of the documentary?
I'd like to say something. Looking at the raw footage, it brought back to my memory how daunting of a task that was to have to cut some of the ministers' interview to fit the time frame of the documentary. Because of course, everything the minister says is important. So that was really, a daunting task to try to decide, what part would stay in, what part do we cut, and things like that. So I just wanted to share that because my husband, he wanted to put everything in. And I said, well, we can't put everything in because otherwise the documentary would be 3 hours long. So.
Thank you. We do have a sister, Shava, that raised her hand. Do you have a question or comment, Sister Shava?
Yes, assalamu alaikum and happy Holy Day of Atonement to everyone.
Wa alaikum salam. Happy Holy Day of Atonement to you as well.
Yes, I think that this was absolutely brilliant, and I thank you for the efforts that everyone put together in creating this great history. I wanted to ask a question in reference to future history and some of the young people may not, may not know in depth all that it took for the Million Man March. But I was wondering if there could be some type of follow-up, like in terms of unsung heroes, or where are they now? If you have any plans to maybe find some of those men, some of the men on the mall, or those key players, and find out what's going on in their life now. Just thought that it would be, really interested in seeing how the miracle of the Million Man March affected.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you for your question, Sister Shava. I'll turn that over to Sister Angela. since she was the producer and director, if you'd like to take that question.
Well, we can both answer, but what immediately came to mind is that we're actually working on doing like a series of videos. I don't know if you're familiar with, what's that video series on the civil rights?
Eyes on the Prize?
Yeah, Eyes on the Prize. And you know how they have more than one video?
Installment.
Right, installment, right.
Volume.
Right, volume. That's a better word. They have more than one volume. So our plan is to do a series and do exactly what you're suggesting, to talk to some of the people and follow up with them who attended the march and all of that. One of our next projects, immediate projects that we're going to do is the hip hop community and talk to some of our hip hop heads. This is Kamara, referred to them as, and some of the young people that would definitely fall in line with some of the young people. So that's one of our next projects. And then we want to do the Million Man March and the Black Church, you know, the Million Man March and HBCUs. So because the Million Man March was so huge, we definitely can do more than one volume.
Thank you. Does that answer your question, Sister Shava? She's back on me.
Oh,
okay. Well, I want to mention a couple things that were in the chat. Sister Kamara, you might want to expand on this, but you commented that Elijah Mountain is in Asheville, North Carolina.
Yes. I actually don't remember watching that part of the video, but it brought back a memory of me actually being in North Carolina and in Asheville several times. And they have a place there where you can mine for crystals. And one of those mountains in down there is Elijah Mountain. So him saying that that's a special place for him, it just reminded me that Elijah Mountain is in Asheville. And actually a lot of the mountains in Asheville are filled with quartz crystals. So just a little nugget of knowledge from Asheville, North Carolina.
Thank you. And, you know, if we ever get the opportunity to communicate with the minister, we're going to share that, what you just mentioned. We need to share that with him. And if he still has the crystal, the rose quartz crystal, then he can, we can refer that information to him. I don't know if he knows it already or not, but I'm sure that he'd be happy to know that there's an Elijah Mountain in Asheville, North Carolina. All right. And also looking at the chat here, someone named Andre and Tia said that they didn't make it to the Million Man March, but me and my family were able to make it to the Million Family March. It was awesome. Thank you, Andre and Tia. I'm glad you were able to make it to the Million Family March. And yeah, that was an awesome event. There were so many young people, people of all ages really, that renewed their vows, that were married, and some that got married at that event. And the whole focus was on family, so it was a wonderful event. Like all the events are that we do, that we've done on the mall. From the Million Man March in '95, the Million Family March in 2000, the Millions More Movement 2005, and Justice or Else on 10/10/15. And also, Brother Anthony mentioned earlier in Philadelphia, the Million Woman March in Philadelphia in 1997. All right, so also Andre and Tia asked the question, how was the minister's health? From what we understand, the minister is in good health. We don't know of any issues he's having at this time. We're thankful that he is in good health. He has intentionally stepped away from speaking in public and doing interviews and all of that, but it has nothing to do with his health. So he's doing well from what we understand. So thank you for that question. And let's see, yeah, someone, I guess there was a couple other questions. Okay, so that's it for the chat. Anyone else have anything that they want to say, any comments or questions before we close out? Okay, Brother Anthony 7, you have something?
Yes, sir, Brother Anthony. Assalamu alaikum, family. Again, I know right before we close out, we have some people who may not know or may have didn't see the 4th of July presentation of the minister. And it's very important that you stay in tune with the latest edition of the Final Call News. This is an historic publication we have here that's documenting the history of the Million Man March. And it's also information related to COVID-19 about be prepared that they're going to try to force us to go into taking the vaccine, and the minister warning us that we should stay away from taking their vaccine, and that we should be looking for alternatives as far as being able to treat ourselves. And so if you stay in tune with the Final Call, you should be able to stay updated on where the minister is guiding us.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Brother Anthony.
Yes, sir.
Anyone else have any comments?
I just like to also mention for us how important it is for us to get this documentary in front of our young people. Unfortunately, a lot of our young people have never heard, some of them have never heard of the Million Man March. And unfortunately, some who have heard of the Million Man March associated with Dr. Martin Luther King. If you go on social media and type in Million Man March, some people say that the Civil Rights Movement, the March on Washington, was the Million Man March. And so one of our goals is to show the documentary to as many young people as we can. We've had the opportunity to go to some colleges and some high schools and show the documentary. And believe it or not, a lot of them are very receptive and excited when they do see the Million Man March documentary. So if anyone knows of any schools who might be interested in showing the documentary, please get in touch with us. Because that's one of our goals, is to show the documentary to our youth.
Thank you, Angie. And, I'm actually going to place in the chat here. If you want to, I put it in already, but I'll place it again. If you want to get a copy of the DVD, you can visit www.vanguardtvn.com. And if you want to rent the DVD, rent the documentary, you can rent it at Quality TV. And you can also subscribe to Quality TV, because that's a Black woman-owned platform, similar to Netflix, but all the content is Black content, independent filmmakers and producers. So this is the link for Quality TV. And you click on that link, you can rent it for $2.99, or you can subscribe to and the last thing I want to mention before we close out and say prayer, if you notice in that segment where that closed out with, the minister talked about us being at war. And when we talk about what we have to do, what the next steps are, I just wanted to say that the next step, from my view, and anyone else can chime in if they have a difference of opinion or whatnot, but in my view, separation is the best and only solution for our people. And the Million Man March wasn't a sign of us, protesting or doing a political demonstration or anything like that. It was more of a sign of us coming together as a nation to go do something for ourselves. So I just want to share that. And if we want to take next steps, if we want to move to the next level, I would suggest that we all go to this website and sign up for Muhammad's Economic Blueprint. And that's the website in the chat, economicblueprint.com, because that's the next step. We have to have some land, because in order to combat the war that we're in, the reason why we're suffering the way we are is because we don't own where we live. So we should pool our resources and buy up where we live. And we should also pool our resources and buy land that we can grow food and feed our people from the food that we grow on our own land. So in my humble opinion, I believe that's the next step in our independence in fighting this war to get away from this enemy that is constantly, trying to kill us, because we're at war, like the minister said. So that's all I had to say. Maybe we can give one more chance for anyone else to make a comment or ask a question. And if not, then we can go ahead and close out in prayer. Anyone? All right, well, I'll take that as everyone is fully satisfied, like we just had a nice meal and everybody's sitting back. And somebody said my links are in the chat. Let me put those in the chat real quick. I think I made a mistake where I put it at here. Here we go. So this is the link to order the DVD, VanguardTVN.com. And this is the link to rent the documentary or to subscribe to Quality TV where the documentary lives. All right. So, you want to ask a question? Too late? Not yes, ma'am. Please ask your question.
I'm just wondering if there's anyone who saw the documentary, if there was anything that you learned that you might not have known about the Million Man March, or what was involved in putting it together. If one or two people could answer that.
And if you have a problem unmuting, please raise your hand, and I think I can help you unmute.
So I know quite a few times when we've shown the documentary, some people always say that the question about the money was something that they didn't know. And so the documentary answered those questions for them. So I was just curious.
Okay, well. Oh, okay. All right, well, if no one else has any questions or comments. I'm sorry, I'll check to see if anyone raised their hand. No one has raised their hand. So, someone's in the chat. Let's go. From Denise Shabazz Muhammad. Website to Quality TV. It's actually Quali TV. And I'll post it again. That link right there, Sister Denise, is quali.tv. So you can click that and it takes you to the website. All right. And if you have any other questions, you can certainly reach out to us on Facebook. We have a Million Man March Facebook page. We have a Million Man March Facebook group. We have a Million Man March Twitter account. And of course, we're live streaming this on Vanguard Television on YouTube. So if you go to YouTube and search Vanguard Television, find this copy of this as well. So Mara said, ask Brother Damani. Hat again? Someone named Damani has a hat? Okay, I'm not sure. Okay, Brother Damani, you want to show your hat? But, all right, well, thank you, Sister Denise, again, for your comment. So at this time, we can go ahead and close out in prayer. And thank you all so much for joining us. You know, the Million Man March is something special. Let me see if I can find the money. Showing his hand. Okay. Is his name showing up, Sis Kamara, as Damani?
So if you look at, so now Brother Mike Massey, I'm sorry if I'm saying your last name incorrectly, but he's showing his button. If you look at Brother Damani and Ife King, he was showing his Million Man March hat.
Okay.
Yeah, there he is again. Before we close out in prayer, he's showing.
Okay. There we go. Thank you so much. That's a classic. Thank you, Brother Damani. That's a classic look there. Well, thank you so much, everyone. We really appreciate it. Never thank you all enough for spending this time with us. So please reach out to us if you have any questions. And even those who have some critical suggestions and whatnot, please reach out to us. We could always use your help and assistance in making whatever we do in the future better. We have no problem collaborating with anyone. Ms. Farrakhan said himself, when he first heard about this documentary at the dinner table, and his secretary mentioned the documentary to him, and somebody mentioned someone else that had documentary footage, and the man asked the question, he said, why can't the believers work together? And we really have that spirit. We really want to work with anyone who wants to work with us. So don't hesitate to reach out to us. There's so many untold stories. There's so many people who contributed. We can't reach out to everybody. We don't know everybody. So if you have something you want to share with us, please do. All right. Well, on this note, let's see. Oh, Sylvia Yancey. Just like you couldn't come off mute. Let me see if I can help you with that. So there you go. Sylvia Yancey, do you want to say something?
Yes, assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam.
I just wanted to let you know, yes, you did an awesome job, even though that because sometimes when we don't get a lot of feedback, we think that people wasn't really interested, but it wouldn't unmute us, so that's probably why too. People might have been trying to unmute, but it wouldn't let them do it. But you did an awesome job. Like I said, part of the feedback is just when you do a presentation, like you said, you had to keep going in and out, but I don't think it took away from the message of you having to go around it. It's just like you said, sometimes we look for perfection. And like you said, we want feedback, not criticism. Feedback always helps us to improve. Criticism break us down.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much, Sister Sylvia.
You're welcome.
All right. Well, thank you, everyone, once again. Brother Anthony, you have any last words for us?
Yes, beloved. I would like to thank everybody on behalf of the DC Ministry of Arts and Culture, the Mid-Atlantic Regional laborers and staff for attending this year's anniversary presentation. Thank you once again.
Thank you. My wife says she wants to call out someone that's here. Go ahead.
Paris.
Hey, Sister Angie. Hey. Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum salam. Just a friend of mine from Howard. We go way back.
It was great. You did a wonderful job. And I was thinking about when we first talked and I said, we were talking about, you think I could talk to the minister? I said, yes, you can.
Yes, I do remember that.
So just keep going and you'll be able to contact him if you just visualize it. And it happened. It took a while, but it worked. And I was just sitting here thinking about that. And it's just amazing how when you visualize, things come together just like you wanted to. But it was great. And the music was awesome. I loved it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. So I'm looking forward to the next section. I have the video. I have the DVD also.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much, Sister Paris.
Okay. Thank you. Great job.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. We'll talk soon.
On that note, which is a wonderful note to end on. We'll go ahead and say prayer. Thank you so much, everyone. May God continue to bless you all. So please assume the position of prayer that's most comfortable for you. In the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Merciful, all praise is due to Allah, the Beneficent, the Merciful, Master of the Day of Judgment. Thee alone do we serve, and Thee alone do we beseech for aid. O Allah, guide us on the right path, the path of those upon whom Thou hast bestowed favors, not the path of those upon whom Thy wrath is brought down, nor of those who go astray. I bear witness that there is no God to be served but Allah, and I bear witness that Muhammad is His messenger. Ameen.
Ameen.
All right, everyone. Thank you so much.